It's wild how quickly a Disney dream can spiral into a public relations nightmare. Just a year ago, Rachel Zegler was being hailed as the next face of Disney royalty, the kind of actress who graces red carpets in sparkling gowns, waves like a princess, and sings to enchanted birds. But somewhere between her casting announcement and the film's release, that fantasy collapsed. And it wasn't just a stroke of bad luck or a few tough reviews. No, this ran deeper, like the universe collectively turning its back on a girl who, perhaps, said too much at the worst possible time. Rachel's downfall didn't begin with a bad performance or a box office bomb. It began with her words. In a string of interviews, Rachel directly criticized the foundation of Disney's legacy, fairy tales themselves. She called the original Snow White outdated, questioned why the princess needed saving, and dismissed the prince as a borderline stalker. For modern audiences who crave subversive twists on old stories, that might have been fine. But this wasn't just any story. This was the story. Snow White was the film that started it all, the bedrock of the Disney empire. And when Rachel decided to modernize it, fans didn't applaud. They pushed back. Hard. People who grew up loving the 1937 classic weren't interested in a rewritten version of their childhood. They wanted magic and nostalgia, not criticism and lectures. And when Rachel offered the latter, the backlash was swift. Meanwhile, Disney was caught in a no-win situation. They'd already invested close to $350 million into this film, that's Marvel-level money. But instead of making headlines for groundbreaking visuals or a chart-topping soundtrack, the media was fixated on Rachel's interviews and the growing sense that she wasn't even proud of the film she was supposed to be promoting. Then came the Zegler incident. In a last-ditch effort to course-correct, Disney staged a grand promotional event at the Alcázar of Zegler, the breathtaking Spanish castle that inspired the original Snow White castle. On paper, it should have been a fairytale moment, castle backdrop, elegant gown, Rachel singing Waiting on a Wish. Everything was lined up perfectly. But instead of a red carpet packed with excited fans and star-studded guests, it was a ghost town. The event was meant to be magical, a grand celebration of Disney's legacy. But what actually unfolded was more like a polite gathering than a red carpet spectacle. A handful of influencers, journalists, and some local schoolchildren filled the space, but the energy felt less Enchanted Kingdom and more awkward school recital. To make matters worse, Gal Gadot, Rachel's co-star in the film's Evil Queen, was noticeably absent. She skipped the event entirely. That left Rachel and director Mark Webb alone, smiling stiffly for photos, trying to sell the illusion that everything was fine. But one look at Rachel's face told a different story. Something was off. Something wasn't clicking. Then, she vanished. No more interviews. No more press appearances. When Snow White finally hit theaters, Rachel Zegler was nowhere to be found. She became a ghost. She was spotted only once in the weeks following, wandering through New York City with no makeup, hair in a messy bun, wrapped in an oversized denim jacket layered over a brown hoodie. She didn't look like a Disney princess. She looked like someone who had read the final chapter before the movie even began. Puffy eyes, blank expression, a face that knew the fairy tale was already over. And the critics didn't go easy on the film. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a punishing 40%. IMDb was even harsher, a staggering 6 out of 10. That's the kind of score you'd expect from a buggy mobile game, not a Disney blockbuster with a $350 million budget. And then came the box office numbers. After all the marketing, the drama, and the anticipation, Disney managed to pull in just $184 million. Less than half of what they spent. Not just a flop, a full-blown disaster. And at the center of it all was Rachel Zegler, the princess who never reached her castle. But Rachel didn't just lose a movie role. She lost the narrative. And once that slipped from her hands, the internet did what it always does. It pounced. Meme after meme, thread after thread. Totoki dissecting her interviews. YouTube commentaries tearing her apart. It felt like everyone had something to say, and none of it was kind. The backlash wasn't really about her acting or her voice. It was about her attitude, or at least, the version of it people saw online. There was a growing perception that Rachel wasn't grateful to be Snow White. That instead of honoring the role, she mocked it. That every eye roll, every sarcastic smirk in interviews wasn't confidence. It was disdain. And audiences noticed. It all started with a one-liner, just a quick jab at outdated princess tropes. But when combined with everything else, it became part of a much bigger storm. Rachel Zegler had built a reputation for speaking her mind. Unlike some of her peers, she wasn't media-trained to perfection. She spoke freely about politics, gender roles, power structures, all the things Disney typically avoids like the plague. In another context, that kind of honesty might have been praised. But Snow White isn't just any film. It's nostalgia in its purest form. It's tradition. And in this case, Rachel's condor wasn't refreshing, it was fatal. And then there was the casting controversy. From the moment Disney announced Rachel as the new Snow White, the internet lit up. Some praised the decision, a bold step forward, casting a Colombian-American actress in an iconic role. But others clung tightly to the original imagery, skin as white as snow, just as the Brothers Grimm described it. It wasn't always about racism. Sometimes it was something murkier. For many, that phrase was tied to a specific image from childhood, a visual memory Disney had burned into the public psyche for nearly a century. Changing it felt, to them, like rewriting history. Rachel didn't shrink from the criticism. In a now-deleted post, she hit back, "Yes, I am Snow White. No, I'm not bleaching my skin for the role." It was bold, maybe too bold for a fanbase already on edge. The backlash exploded. She was labeled arrogant, disrespectful, ungrateful. Trolls flooded her comments. Influencers dissected every interview frame by frame. Her tone, her clothes, her facial expressions, nothing was safe. Every moment became evidence. A case against her. And then there was Gal Gadot. Polished, poised, beloved. As the evil queen, she was the perfect PR contrast to Rachel's controversy. But when Rachel needed backup most, Gal was nowhere to be found. She skipped events, avoided the drama, and kept her distance. Sure, they posed together at the Oscars and the film premiere, smiling like everything was fine, but the chemistry was ice cold. Fans noticed. Rumors swirled, whispers of backstage tension, feuds, even political clashes. Some speculated the two leading ladies couldn't stand each other, and the cracks only grew more visible when the official trailer dropped. But no one was talking about the visuals or the score. All anyone wanted to discuss were the politics. Rachel had posted some fiery takes online after the 2024 election, statements that many viewed as aggressive, even combative. One post in particular triggered a full-scale social media meltdown. She deleted it. She apologized. But the damage was done. At that point, this wasn't just about a movie anymore. It was about who Rachel Zegler was and what she stood for. Disney, masters of crisis control, tried to steer the ship quietly back to calm waters. But with the internet in flames, it was already too late. Instead of a dazzling Hollywood premiere, Snow White was quietly ushered into the world with a subdued daytime event at the El Capitan Theater. No red carpet spectacle. No screaming fans. Just a carefully managed photo op and a short screening, like Disney was fulfilling a contractual obligation rather than celebrating a flagship release. And Rachel? She was gone. No interviews, no red carpet, no carefully staged paparazzi photos. It was as if she had disappeared into the shadows of her own shattered fairy tale, waiting for the storm to pass. But online, the storm was only beginning. At the height of the backlash, something surreal happened. Rachel Zegler was spotted sitting in a nearly empty movie theater, quietly watching Snow White, her own film. No entourage, no grand entrance, just her and a couple of friends in the back row. That image haunted people. It didn't feel like a movie star basking in her success. It felt like a tragic epilogue. A final scene in what was supposed to be a celebration, but had instead become a punchline across the industry. This wasn't how Disney rollouts were supposed to look. No one expected the lead of a $350 million production to be hiding from the spotlight, skipping press tours, and watching her film quietly tank in real time. It was humiliating. And for a performer who once radiated confidence on every stage she graced, it had to cut deep. Across the country, theaters echoed that same silence. Empty rows. Quiet screenings that felt more like test audiences than actual premieres. Even Discount Tuesdays couldn't fill the seats. The magic was gone. The audience wasn't just uninterested, they were actively staying away. Online, a new label emerged, the ultimate woke flop. It started showing up in YouTube thumbnails, Reddit threads, Titoki, and Rachel's name was always at the center of it. But here's the truth, it wasn't all her fault. Yes, she made some tone-deaf comments. Yes, she pushed back hard against tradition. But the real tragedy wasn't just Rachel. It was the film itself. Despite a budget that rivaled Marvel's biggest hits, the final product felt soulless. The visuals looked artificial. The plot was messy. And whatever heart the original Snow White had been sanitized, stripped away, and replaced with a clumsy, ultra-modern rewrite. People didn't go to this film looking for a lecture about feminism wedged between CGI castles and nostalgia callbacks. They wanted wonder. They wanted magic. But what they got was cold dialogue and an empty echo of a once-beloved story. The film felt hollow, not just in story, but in spirit. The characters were flat, and there was this lingering sense that even the actors didn't believe in what they were selling. And when your lead actress spends more time fending off Twitter mobs than promoting the film, the cracks in the kingdom become impossible to hide. Disney tried everything to contain the damage. Carefully orchestrated interviews, polished sound bites, Instagram posts tailored for damage control. But none of it worked. It was too late. The internet had already made up its mind. Rachel Zegler wasn't just seen as a struggling actress. She was painted as the poster child for everything people hated about modern Hollywood. A symbol of what happens when corporations chase hashtags instead of heart. Even her fans started to back away, not out of hatred, but out of heartbreak. She looked exhausted. The fire that once lit up her face in West Side Story had dimmed. The wide-eyed girl who once radiated hope was now just trying to make it through the storm. Her expressions grew guarded, her voice quieter. She looked older than her years, like someone who'd been forced to grow up far too quickly. Behind the scenes, the whispers began. Rachel was quietly being pulled from upcoming Disney projects. Brand deals that once seemed inevitable suddenly vanished. Some insiders called her too polarizing. Others said she just needed time to regroup. Either way, doors that once flew open were now closing, softly but decisively. And yet, there was something heartbreakingly human about it all. Watching someone go from Disney's next big star to a cautionary tale in less than a year wasn't just dramatic, it was tragic. Because beneath the memes, the think pieces, and the backlash, was a young woman who once dreamed of playing a princess. And maybe that's the saddest part of all, not that she failed, but that when the fairy tale crumbled, no one stuck around to see if she was okay. The curtain fell, the lights went out, and Rachel Zegler was left standing alone on the stage. No applause, no encore, just silence.